ShotokuTech, Saturday Story Time. These are the stories that you might have missed while you were caught up in other stories. You're watching ShotokuTech, Saturday Story Time, 3 October 2020 edition. So, water in some areas of Houston may be tainted with a deadly brain-eating microbe. Texas Commission on Environmental Quality warned the Brazosport Water Authority late Friday of potential contamination of its water supply by Nagliera fowleri. People are warned not to use tap water for any reason except to flush toilets. The communities are home to about 120,000 people, including the Dow Chemical Works in Freeport and Clemens and Wayne Scott State Prison units. The Brazosport Authority's water system has to be thoroughly flushed, and additional tests of water samples need to show the water's safe again for use. Nagliera fowleri is a free-living microscopic amoeba, commonly found in warm, fresh water and soil. It usually infects people through their nose, and it travels to the brain and causes a rare and debilitating disease called primary amoebic meningocephalitis. I don't know. Can we? Let's see. We find a way to pronounce this. Pronounce.
Encephalitis.
Cheaters. There we go.
Meningoencephalitis.
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 Meningoencephalitis. Anyway, here's another one for your 2020 bingo card if you're in the Houston area. Contamination of treated public water systems by the microbe is rare, but it's not unheard of. It's occurred before in Louisiana, Arizona, and even Australia and Pakistan. In this story, an American is sued by a hotel in Thailand over a negative TripAdvisor review, and he could spend up to 2 years in jail and $6,000 fine. So I guess you have to be careful about leaving reviews on TripAdvisor, at least while you're in a foreign country. Wait until you get back to the States before you do this. During a recent visit to the Seaview Resort, this gentleman ran into trouble after he wrote unflattering online reviews about his holiday. The owner filed complaint that the defendant had posted unfair reviews on his TripAdvisor website. Immigration police arrested this gentleman, and he's briefly detained and then freed on bail. So his comments included unfriendly staff who act like they don't want anyone here. He got into an argument with staff over not paying a corkage fee for alcohol that he brought to the hotel. And the resort owner says legal action was only taken because this person had penned multiple reviews on several different sites over the past few weeks, one including accusing the hotel of modern-day slavery, and they choose to file a complaint to serve as a deterrent, as they understand he might continue to write negative reviews week after week for the foreseeable future. Thailand's notorious anti-defamation laws have long drawn scrutiny from human rights and press freedom groups who say powerful players use it as a weapon to stifle free speech. With a maximum sentence of 2 years in prison and a $6,300 fine, I guess you better be careful about what kind of review you post on TripAdvisor. And I would recommend waiting till you get back to your home country before you do so. Back in the July 4th edition of Saturday Story Time, I reported that NASA was seeking designs for a lunar toilet. So NASA has developed this $23 million space toilet, and it's making its way to the International Space Station for testing. Soon, it will be on its way to the Moon or Mars. It's called the Universal Waste Management System, 65% smaller and 40% lighter than the toilet currently in use on the space station, and it can support larger crews. Radiation levels on the moon may be more than double those in the space station. Researchers with the German Aerospace Center in Cologne developed this lunar lander neutron and dosimetry sensor, and this sensor was placed on the Chang'e lunar probe from China. They've determined that radiation levels may be as much as 2.6 times greater than those measured on the International Space Station. For comparison, passengers on board a flight from Germany to New York are exposed to dose rates 5 to 10 times lower than that, and on the Earth's surface, radiation rates are more than 200 times lower than what was measured by this device on the Chinese lander. Astronauts will have to shield themselves from extended exposure to this radiation. Lawyers for Bill Murray's golf company and the Doobie Brothers exchange humorous legal letters using lyrics from Doobie Brothers songs. Bill Murray's golf apparel company has used the song Listen to the Music in ads without compensating the Doobie Brothers. The Doobie Brothers lawyers say, "It's a fine song, I know you agree, because you keep using it in ads for your Zero Hucks Given golf shirts. However, you haven't paid to use it. Maybe you should change the company name to $0 Given. We'd almost be okay with it if the shirts weren't so damn ugly, but it is what it is." The lawyers for William Murray Golf are indeed fans of the Doobie Brothers, and this is why we appreciate your firm's choice of taking it to the streets rather than to the courts, which are already overburdened by minute with real problems. There's a lot of other exchanges of Doobie Brothers lyrics in here. It's a really fun article to read. Hopefully they will come to some sort of settlement, but Murray golf shirts have been sent to each member of the band. What the people need is a way to make them smile. At least that's what this fool believes.
There may be liquid water on Mars at the South Pole. Here, this is analysis of radar data that indicates the Central Lake may span roughly 600 square kilometers. It would have to be extremely salty to keep it from freezing, much like subglacial lakes in the Antarctica. They were using radar, short bursts of radio waves that reflect off the ice, but some of these radio waves penetrate deeper and bounce off the bottom of the ice. So if there's a bottom of the ice, then there has to be something underneath that that's not reflecting radio signals as much. The possible lake was originally found using radar data collected from May 2012 to December 2015. Now, in data collected from the last 10 years, the team found once again regions beneath the ice that are highly reflective and very flat. It not only confirms earlier hints of large buried lake, but also unearthed a handful of smaller ponds encircling the main body of water, separated by strips of dry land. So this work is done using the European Space Agency's Mars Express orbiter. They calculate the ice temperature is about minus 70 Celsius. They argue that there must be some source of geothermal heat to keep the water liquid. So the question is, can Mars bring the heat?
A team of scientists from the University of California, Riverside have precisely measured the amount of matter and dark energy in the entire universe. The team determined that matter makes up 31% of the total amount of matter and energy. And as we see in this diagram, that total amount of matter, 20% is regular matter, that which we can observe, stars, galaxies, dust, and gas, and the remaining 80% is dark matter. And that dark matter and regular matter combined equal 31% of the total amount of matter and energy in the universe. The remainder is dark energy. We talked about that in our time travel articles recently. If all the matter in the universe were spread evenly across space, it would correspond to an average mass density equal to only about 6 hydrogen atoms per cubic meter. So you'd need 4 times that amount of dark matter to represent our universe. So most of our universe consists of a type of matter which we don't yet understand. These observations were made by looking at member galaxies in galaxy clusters, and by determining the orbits of these member galaxies in these galaxy clusters and comparing them against simulations, they were able to determine the total amount of matter in the universe. This was such an accurate method that they were able to determine the mass of each cluster individually rather than rely on indirect statistical methods. Their findings are also supported by other observation techniques such as cosmic microwave anisotropies, baryon acoustic oscillations, type 1a supernova, or gravitational lensing.
Okay, let's finish up with this story here, Are Aliens Hiding in Plain Sight? First of all, I want to get some terminology straight here. If we go somewhere else in the universe looking for life, we are the aliens, not the life that we find. If that life comes here, we can call them aliens or extraterrestrials. So I already contend with the title of the article here. But let's talk about this article. We have missions currently flying to Mars right now to seek signs of current or past life there. We also have plans to survey Jupiter's moon Europa and Saturn's moon Titan. And we can even get a glimpse of chemical makeup of atmospheres of planets that orbit other stars, the exoplanets. There's more than 4,000 of them now. So we might see some signatures of life. NASA's unofficial working definition is a self-sustaining chemical system capable of Darwinian evolution. So NASA needs to know what the definition of life is so it knows how to build detectors to find life. Astrobiologist Lynn Rothschild warns that Winnie the Pooh and Piglet, when they were hunting a woozle, mistook their own footprints for its tracks. You can't hunt for something if you have no idea what it is. Scientists who study the possibility of life on other worlds think our view is too parochial. All living things on Earth are relatively the same. Cells adapted in a watery environment, molecular machinery built from proteins and encoded as genes and DNA. Extraterrestrial life might not work the same way. Titan's surface, for example, is very cold and it has lakes of hydrocarbons like methane and ethane. Rothschild says, I have difficulty imagining another life form that is not based on carbon. Water also has a ton of advantages as life solvent. There could be organisms floating in Titan's atmosphere that essentially drink petrol to sustain themselves. Living systems are extremely complex, maintained by information that passes between generations and creates an organization. But that organization of living things is always out of equilibrium. It's constantly fed with energy and doesn't settle into a static state. So the Viking landers were calibrated to find chemical disequilibrium in the environment, which perhaps only life could sustain over geological timescales. But ordered disequilibrium can also be found in non-living systems such as flowing liquids, so that criterion alone doesn't single out life. Other astrobiologists, Bartlett and Wang, suggest a new definition, a broader category called life with a Y, pronounced Loif. It draws on energy sources in its environment that keep it from becoming uniform and unchanging. It grows exponentially, for example, by replication. It can regulate itself to stay stable in a changing environment. It learns and remembers information about that environment. Darwinian evolution is an example of such learning over very long time scales. Genes preserve useful adaptations to particular circumstances. Our hope is that this definition frees our imaginations enough not to miss life that might be hiding in plain sight. There is no known life form that directly harnesses kinetic energy into its metabolism, for example. Scientists have devised artificial ways to store and process information using two-dimensional arrays of synthetic molecules. The distinction between life and non-life might be hazy. Being alive might be a matter of degree. Scientists already argue about whether viruses qualify. NASA's working definition that life can only arise and develop by Darwinian evolution is rather limited. Even terrestrial organisms can shape their behavior in ways that don't depend on Darwin's mechanism of random mutations and competitive for resources that selects advantageous mutations. There might be some systems that have many attributes of life but never cross the threshold to Darwinian life. This evolution by natural selection is a well-defined principle that we know will apply not just on Earth but elsewhere in the universe, and it can be driving the diversity of life on other planets. We can make reasonable assumptions about other attributes it will have. For example, life will possess a process like photosynthesis to harvest energy from a parent star. Bartlett and Wong question whether living things must have clearly defined physical boundaries. We might imagine that we are simply everything inside of our skin, and yet we rely on other organisms inside of us, like the microbiome of bacteria in our guts. And philosophers argue that our minds are extended well beyond our brains and bodies through our technological devices. So the argument is the only natural boundary for living processes is the planetary. But without some clearly defined boundary for molecular ingredients, all the components of a living system could get diluted away into its environment. What we have right now are non-natural definitions of life reliant upon a single data point, our subjective observations of life on Earth. We may discover systems that are so weird and unexpected we can't decide whether they are alive or not, but we might discover something really interesting and complex that doesn't fit the definition. We're not going to ignore it because it doesn't fit the definition. Thank you for watching ShotokuTech Saturday Story Time. Look for the link down below in the description to this Blogspot article with all of the links to the stories we just talked about. Thank you and have a great week. Thank you for watching ShotokuTech. Please subscribe, comment, like, and share.